Judo Gene LeBell, he's one of my heroes. He has done more in the world of martial arts than just about anybody you'll ever find.
Gene overcame an enormous amount of racism throughout his career. He was a real groundbreaker in so many ways.
Judo Gene is overlooked. The guy can do it all. He can do submissions, he can do judo, he can do MMA. He's the real deal.
I'm very lucky to have somebody like Uncle Gene in my life to really be a guide and a mentor.
Back in the 40s and 50s, before the terms cross-training and mixed martial arts existed, Gene LeBell was already doing them. And this is a guy who, at the age of 7, started training with Ed Strangler Lewis, who's arguably the greatest catch-as-catch-can wrestler of his generation. Then he moved on at the age of 11 to train in the Main Street Boxing Gym, where some of the greatest boxers of all time trained, and he even ended up sparring with Sugar Ray Robinson.
I was a young kid at Main Street Gym, and Sugar Ray Robinson came in with his hair greased down, and he looked beautiful. He had his initials on his convertible Cadillac, and he got on the ring, and his sparring partner didn't show up. So Howie Steiner says, anybody want to work out with a Sugar Man? I says, yeah, if he isn't afraid of me. In other words, when your head is this big, no good boxer's gonna miss it. In the first round, he hit me 300 times. He taught me a couple things.
Gene's decision to take up judo in addition to boxing and catch wrestling was a tougher one to make than a lot of people realize.
Here comes in this big white guy, red hair, obviously not Japanese, and wants to learn their thing. And a lot of people just said, go away.
Gene went to train at a predominantly Japanese dojo. Some of the people who trained there had even been held in American internment camps.
Even the ones that let him work out just tried to beat the crap out of him.
But Gene willingly went in there. He took a student's role. He got his butt kicked day after day after day, and yes, endured discrimination in order to pick up the skills that he needed to call himself a judoka and essentially a judo champion.
Not only did he win the national championship, but then they also had a grand championship, which was the winner of all the weight divisions. And he won that too.
This guy went against the grain at every single opportunity. He never took the easy road. That attitude translates directly into why he picked up the Milo Savage Challenge.
There was a magazine called Rogue Magazine, and it said judo bums. This guy, Jim Beck, offered $1,000 to any martial artist he couldn't beat. Ted Parker came to me with this magazine, and he says, we want you to fight. I said, why me? He says, Gene, everybody knows you're the most sadistic bastard in the world. So we ended up in 1963 in Salt Lake City, Utah.
This is a time when boxers were considered to be the 100% best all-round fighters in the world. But Gene didn't care. He was willing to take his style and put it into the competitive arena with the whole world watching.
So when I'm going to fight, instead of Jim Beck, they threw in a ringer, Milo Savage. And Milo Savage was a rated fighter, number 5 in the world at the time.
A guy who had a pedigree of putting people to sleep with 10-ounce gloves on, and he's only wearing 4s.
My coach said, you're not going to fight this guy. If he ever hits you in the face, it'll come out the other side.
This is a 100% pro boxing crowd.
People were talking a lot of shit, saying that, like, you know, judo fighters were bums.
When I got there, they said no kicking. It was strictly judo.
Gene wasn't supposed to punch Milo, and Milo had to wear the gi, top and stuff. So Gene was at a real serious disadvantage because he had to close a space without being able to throw his hands.
So when we get in the ring, he has a karate gi filled with grease.
And I know Milo had put Vaseline on his gi, and it wasn't a judo gi, it was a karate gi, which was like very thin material.
But it was Salt Lake City, you could do what you want. You don't wing it, you have to have a plan. I didn't get close to him, and when I got close, I dropped my left arm so he'd throw a right. So when he threw a right, it went underneath and hooked him and clinched him.
Gene threw him around a couple times.
I happened to get lucky and throw him in a judo throw and land on him, and then I got behind him to choke him, and he grabbed my thumb and started to bite it. I said, Milo, you bite my finger, and I'm going to take your eye out. So he opened his mouth.
When Gene finally came to grips on that gi top and got a hold of Savage's throat, it was all over.
And I reached around and I choked him out.
It was a boxing referee, so he didn't know what a choke was, and so Gene choked him out for a while.
He did not get up 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes after he was choked out.
Poor Milo was sitting down there, and when I walked, I accidentally stepped on him.
There was such a strong good guy, bad guy dynamic in that fight that the crowd just became completely unhinged.
People started throwing chairs and pillows, and in Salt Lake City, that's the way of saying, oh, you put on a great show, we love you.
They didn't want to acknowledge the result. They didn't want to acknowledge that an Asian martial art had overcome what is essentially an American martial art in boxing.
And you take nothing away from Milo Savage. He knocked out quite a few martial artists before he met me. But the other martial artists that he beat didn't grow up in boxing, and I did.
You can't really understate the importance of the Savage versus LeBell fight. That was the first time that somebody stepped up and said, look, grappling styles can overcome boxing. I know that UFC 1 was a watershed moment, but Gene LeBell did that 30 years previously. This guy really is a founding father of modern day mixed martial arts.
That's the guy that stepped in and did MMA before there was ever MMA.
He really stood up for us and showed everybody that if you're a judoka, you really are someone to be reckoned with. I can't thank him enough for that because his actions have really affected me so many years later and always will.